Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the 3-for-1 podcast. We are here today to talk to you about cube design, sort of our philosophy of cube, I guess. As always, I am Zemoo. I'm here joined with
Bobbrik, also known as Andy.
Bacon, also known as Nick, also known as Chims. I have a lot of fucking names.
Yes, we got like a 3-for-1 names going on with just this one.
Yes.
So anyway, we...
Brought to you by Existential Crises.
So we have all cubed a bit. Some of us have experience designing our own cubes, and we wanted to sort of share our ideas with you because we cube a lot, we cube with other people a lot, and cube is supposed to be this fun, exciting experience, and very few things put a damper on it than when the cube is just kind of poorly designed from the ground up. So we want to help people, maybe in a way that is a little condescending, but hopefully not. Hopefully not. I have trouble holding myself back.
I aim to be explicitly condescending during this. That is my vibe.
This is meant to help you build up, not tear you down. But you got to tear down to build up.
Yeah. And keep in mind, guys, this is just our opinions. While hopefully well informed, everyone makes their own decision when it comes to how you design your cube and the play experience with your play group.
If some of the things that I think are bad in cube, that might be your jam, and I don't want to yuck your yum. So if you're having fun playing with things that I say you shouldn't be doing, that keep doing what you're doing as long as you're having fun, because that's the point. So let's get to explaining our experience, I guess. I have 3 cubes right now. I have my power cube, my pauper cube, and what I call my archetype cube. And there's sort of a spectrum of ownership to those. So my power cube, I completely outsourced the building of it. I copied a list, and that is a valid way to design a cube. Is someone else spent a lot of time making, card choices, and if you like what they're about, you like their cube, you can just copy it. Ain't no shame in that. It's much easier than investing the time to make decisions.
Right.
My pauper cube is somewhere in the middle. I started that one there was a thread, I think it's on MTG Salvation, or was, I think that site.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I think it went down, but it's back up. Anyway, there was a thread called Evaluate Everything for Pauper, and they just went through every single common in the game and just evaluated them for viability in Pauper Cube. So I sort of read that whole thread, figured out what statistically are like the best cards, and used that as my base. I've updated it since. They haven't kept up with that project. So I've, made some changes on my own since, but it was heavily, the inception of it was heavily informed by other people's ideas. And when I first started pauper cubing, I built it to be a cheap cube, and I didn't know much about it. So I wasn't going to sit there and go, oh, Guardian of the Guild Pack wasn't good in original Ravnica, why would it be good here? I let other people tell me, well, 5 cards in the cube kill it, so pretty good.
It's progenitus.
Yeah, it's so, I've learned since I've played my cube a bunch, my pauper cube, was like, oh, I know how to make changes, so I've taken that into my own hands. And then the archetype cube, I'm not going to go too deep into how and why, but that one is all my homemade brew. I came up with the idea of I wanted a cube where you're not drafting red-black, you're drafting a sacrifice deck that happens to be red and black. You're drafting around a card, you're drafting like a spider spawning or a soul warden, something that greatly influences your picks, and you're building synergies, not strong cards.
Of your cubes, that one's my favorite. I like all your cubes, don't get me wrong, but that one is definitely hands down my favorite.
Yeah, definitely the more homegrown my cubes are, the more I enjoy them. And maybe that's my, narcissism showing through. But it's, everyone's drafted like a power cube, like the Moto cube maybe. But very few people have drafted archetype cube. And it's like this, my own son, it's my brain trust going out into the world and helping people. So you're always proud of your kids more than you are of others, even if they, arguably have accomplished more. So that's about it for me. I've got some other ideas that I haven't really put work into, but we'll go with the things that I've for sure done and let these two talk about themselves.
After you.
Yeah, so I have a mono white cube and an Innistrad draft simulation cube. So the mono white cube was developed with the thought in mind that white at the time was the only color that all inclusively could answer its own issues. So red can't answer enchantments easily, neither can black. So a mono black cube would obviously have disparately powered cards of that type, whereas white can deal with all of its own artifacts, enchantments, creatures, lands. So the cube was designed with the intention that every card that you draft, you're not taking just because you're in the red-black seat and a red or black card comes by. Every card you have to closely evaluate when you fan out the pack, because all of them are going to be viable within at least your mana base. So every card is in contention. And then the other cube, obviously, was just an Innistrad, Shadows over Innistrad and Eldritch Moon draft cube, because I really enjoyed those limited formats. And that's kind of a different take on cube, where it's trying to replicate closely a draft environment, which is difficult to do with how packs have an as-fan and they're differently collated and, all the different rarities, especially with DFCs. But I really enjoy that kind of limited experience, and replicating it is a good thing that you're able to do with a cube. So, Shins, what do you have?
So my cube was designed a little bit differently. I call it the Live the Fever Dream cube. So
Nice.
One day in college, I consumed a little under the LD50 of caffeine, ate some ergot-infested wheat, and various other fungal components.
The lore is deep.
of just general mysterious nature. I had a spirit journey, and my spirit journey led me to build a cube that was somehow a functional nightmare. If you see Splinter Twin, if you see Pasture Mite, you can draft a Splinter Twin. If you see Astral Slide, there's a lot of cycling. If you ever wanted to answer a Nicol Bolas Planeswalker with a balance, this was the cube for you. It answers the question, if you win and it's not a meme, did anyone really win? And somehow this cube actually ended up being rather functional. In my delirious state, I managed to put together two card combos that were somehow synergistic with other 2-card combos in the deck, even if they didn't pop off and go infinite. So the point of that cube was, do you have a twisted dream that you want to live? Well, go ahead and live it. If you see a card, it's probably supported. If it's not, I don't know, man. And it ended up being a pretty fun chaos. There were some balance issues, of course, but at least if the games weren't balanced, those ones were pretty goddamn short. So you could go on and play in another match.
Right.
A little bit of a different design philosophy, but I think still a valid one and a good perspective to have. Mm-hmm. You could see everything, but it was it was a lot of fun. It was a good time. That was my cube.
Hopefully you don't see the inside of an ER, but... So yeah, that... For all my grandstanding about, the right way to cube and not, if you have your design philosophy and that the wrong way is the right way, that works. As long as you have a holistic design philosophy.
I'm here to be the heel of this episode.
I think that's a great
Yeah.
point to kind of boil it down to. Is you can have your design philosophy as long as it's a concise, consistent, heuristic framework,
Yeah. Sometimes the point of the cube is, this will not be fun. You will not enjoy this. And that's okay.
Just embrace the chaos, embrace the jank. You're good to go. Like,
well, that's like someone that plays stacks in EDH, right? It's
Yeah.
like, I'm not here for your enjoyment.
Yeah.
You're here for my enjoyment.
You don't even have to be here, but it's better if you are.
my philosophy is I'm not here to win, I'm here to make you lose.
Right.
So yeah, that's a good segue to our next topic is you want an elevator pitch. For those of you who don't work in the business world, I don't know. There's this idea that you want to be able to, explain your idea to someone in an elevator ride. You just got a quick, pithy, like, hey, I'm Zemoo, and I have a cube where all the decks have to be, archetypes built around one of a few different pre-planned archetypes. And there's not going to be a mid-range deck or an aggro deck or a control deck. It's going to be spider spawning archetype. It's going to be self-mill, Probably run a little too long for the elevator. I've always been bad at elevator pitches.
Well, you covered 3 cubes in that time. I think
Yeah.
you ran good
As a
each.
corporate salesman, that wasn't bad.
Yeah, depends how long the elevators are. But yeah, you want a quick idea like, oh, Pauper Cube, all the cards were common at one point. Simple. If someone doesn't know what your cube is, now they know what your cube is. So there's a couple. I believe you had a thing, Andy, where it's like you didn't like it when some cubes were mostly this, but they had like a little.
Yeah, so I feel like one of the things that a lot of people that design cubes fall into is they're trying to express themselves with a cube, as most designers do. And when they come up with an idea for their cube, they find exceptions to the rule that they justify including. For example, I know someone with a cube that's all artifacts. It's a 360 card cube, so you can draft 8 players. It's always drafted all the cards, and 359 of them are artifacts. One of them is a battle that flips into an artifact, but when they explain the cube to someone, when they sit down 7 fresh people, they say, this is my cube, every card in it is an artifact. And then there are further explanations. It's, well, not every card is an artifact. This one, transforms into an artifact, and then the cube is, 4 colors non-green, but there's Birthing Pod, which is green, and the explanations continue, which is fine. If you include cards that break your own design rules, obviously, if the sum of what they add is more than that, the extra work that comes with explaining it and the cognitive legwork that you dispense on your players, that's still fine. But you have to kind of weigh those options, because if you're adding something as an exception, and it doesn't add all that much to the draft environment, but you could cleanly just kind of break with that and stick to the rules, I think that you gain a lot. If you can just say, again, here's my cube, it's 360 cards, every card's an artifact, there are no green cards. So you have to kind of evaluate that way. And I'm not, attacking anyone if Birthing Pod fits in that cube, because you can cast it and it's not a forest, and technically it, is within your framework, that's fine. But I just feel like you have to kind of evaluate how much you're adding to the experience of that cube to kind of compensate for the fact that when you sit people down, in order for them to grok that, to kind of get the concept of your cube, you have to kind of pound into them like, there isn't this, there isn't that, there's also this, here's the, exception to the rule. So in the mono white cube, for example, I have a black card, Dismember, which you can cast even though you're only allowed to add planes to your cube. When I explain the cube to someone, I won't even mention that. I'll just, because, again, if you sit people down and you're just rattling off like, oh, it's a mono white cube, every card is white, but there's this, but there's that. I feel like you lose a lot of the impact, the punchiness of just telling people, this is what to expect, set your expectations for this. Anything that is outside of that framework, you'll be able to quickly resolve within yourself. When you see Dismember, you're going to realize, oh, it's fine. I can cast it with the planes. I get it. It's not white. But.
Yeah. see people's faces, their excitement just drooping as you keep rattling off. But this and this,
Just
and,
getting a match of arena in while you're explaining the rules of your cubes.
Yeah.
and then they forget the important one, which is it's only white cards. It's a little different for like the artifact cube because like you might want to tell people don't take Birthing Pod thinking you can draft a green deck. Take it thinking it's a colorless card,
Right.
which is easy to explain sometimes, but not easy to explain. It's like part of the rider. There's no green cards. Birthing Pod's not green.
Right. Yeah.
It's one of those like weird things where like how you want to approach it linguistically. It's like, none of the cards in my cube require green mana to cast.
Speaking as a writer, approaching it linguistically, I just wouldn't. Like, these are all artifacts. Bam, you're done. Like, ta-da!
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's one of the approaches that you can take.
Yeah.
If it is such a small thing that it doesn't require explanation, then I would say don't explain it.
I think the best example of setting those expectations, and again, not to massage your feet too much, John.
They're really sore.
It's the archetype cube that you have. John has this little cheat sheets made that are pretty dope. That just explain these are the archetypes, but in these colors, kind of like the primers you get when you do like a pre-release. And I just like glance it over,
Or on
I speed
Arena.
read it, and bam, you're good to go. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's good. It's perfect. Like, here you go. These are the archetypes. Any questions?
Yeah.
All right, let's draft.
So part of that was, there's this broader explanation where it's like the life gain deck is in Abzan colors, but there's a Searing Meditation, a red-white card that triggers whenever you gain life. So I don't want people to think that they can draft red-white life gain, but they can splash that in an Abzan deck, or, there could be a green-black-white deck with some Soul Warden tokens, life gain themes, and like, you're happily take this card. So it's one of those, like, I don't want to explain all those nuances, so I found a way to just quickly visually, like, this is the home of these decks. You might find stuff elsewhere, but this is their home.
Yep. It works out really well. It's a good draft experience. Like I said, it's my favorite. It's my favorite of your cubes. My personal rules expectations are: listen, man, if you think is this card supported, probably, I had more rules for my own building where I didn't have more than 2 pips. I kept everything to 2 colors and no shard cards, so 3-color combinations, and the only lands that were in my cube, because I was really lazy, were 20 proxies of City of Brass. And so that was pretty much it. Like, you can go, like, it's just about setting an expectation of what to expect out of the cube. Like, if people ask me, what's your cube's theme? I'm like, I don't fucking know, dude. Just draft good cards. If you see a Splinter Twin, chances are it's supported. If you see Astral Slide, there's cards in there that support Astral Slide. Like, just pick a dream and live it, and at least it'll be synergistic enough with other dreams to give you a good stuff deck, even if you don't get the Pasture Might with your Splinter Twin.
It's sort of there's this weird thing where in the Final Fantasy set, there's a bunch of cards that, like, whenever a pirate, rogue, or scout deal, and there's like no other pirates, rogues, or scouts in the set. It's just it means that card, but it's templated that way, so you can build a commander deck around it.
Yeah,
and it's just like super. Sometimes, like, if you don't read the blurb at the thing, where it's like, red black is wizards deck, and you like take this card that cares about wizards, but you're like, you see a white wizard in the pack, and you're like, maybe I could do blue-white wizards, but like, there just aren't other white wizards. There's the one uncommon white wizard or something. I made up that example. I don't actually remember if there's white wizard. But I remember my first draft had the guys, whenever you gain life, put counters on your clerics. And there's like a green cleric, vanilla, I think. And I just drafted like green-white clerics, but that deck is not a cleric deck.
It's not supported.
Those aren't the life gain colors in the set, so I just... It worked because I got, the right mix of cards, but I was misled.
Yeah.
So you want the cheat sheet is to like not have people be misled, because it happens all the time in my archetype cube where like I have a card with background, and the whole point of that card is it makes your creatures deal damage equal to their toughness for the wall deck, but there's no backgrounds to draft. So when I tell you it's an archetype cube, you might go, "Oh, there's backgrounds supported in this cube. What's the background rules? I don't have a commander, right?" So like sometimes if I could just Sharpie that out, it would be better, but I don't want to deface my cards. And some people are like, "Oh, is this a Sharpie cube? Are there other erratas that I need to know about?" Like there's so many things that people, there's so many ways people can be misled, and I just want to over explain, but you gotta figure out the right way.
Right.
The most rules intensive cube I ever drafted was actually a Sharpie cube, and that was a glorious disaster. It was so my friend, she had proxied a bunch of cards and put them into like printed proxies and put them into clear sleeves, and we quickly realized we needed to establish rules on what you could do, because turns out if you can Sharpie a fetch land, it becomes pay 1 life, search your library for a card, put that card onto the battlefield, and then it's just resolve fetch land, win every game. So it like sometimes rules, even for janky chaos, which is definitely my particular brand of Magic, even with that, like rules can be really appropriate. But try the Sharpie cube out. Like it'll last like half an hour after you're done drafting, because the games will be instantaneously over. But it is pretty hilarious. It is just a living meme that you can exist in.
I feel like the point of Sharpie cube is to just do the most degenerate thing you can dream of.
Right. Yeah. We had Is Bob, and then somebody found a way of finding Kills Bob, and that was the sideboard tech of the day. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Oh, imagine how much time you have to spend sideboarding when you can just change the text of all your sideboard cards.
Yep.
What do you mean?
We were given like 4 extra sleeves so we could like redo a card 4 times. It was actually a very good time.
So what you're describing right now is rules that go along with the draft that might, these also should be in your elevator pitch.
Yes.
So there's desert cubes where you have to draft the lands, like they don't provide basics at the end. So like you should probably explain that when you give your elevator pitch of the cube. If you have like a Squadron Hawk or 7 dwarves, you get extra copies of those cards. Or if you don't, just tell people, hey, there's 7 dwarves in this cube, or 5 Squadron Hawks. You got to find them.
Mm-hmm.
Snow lands are draftable. You don't get snow lands, or you do. That definitely changes how much you want to draft cards with snow in their their activated abilities. I had a cool cube that it's been on the build list. Hasn't happened yet. Mer Servitor cube. Mer Servitor is a 1/1 that brings back all other Mer Servitors from everyone's graveyard to their owner's battlefield each upkeep. And the whole cube was just different ways to abuse that, sack outlets, ways to grow artifact creatures, things that exile. But the rule was you don't draft the Mer Servitors. Mer Servitors work like a basic land. At the end of the draft, everyone gets as many as they want. So, like, if you're doing a Mer Servitor cube and you open a pack and there's no Mer Servitors, like, people are going to be like, what's going on here? You gotta brief them. Mm-hmm. So, it's good to have your rules, whatever they may be, in your elevator pitch. Mm-hmm. Any other rules you can think of that are common, I guess?
No, I think you elaborated well. I know people that have custom companion rules where you can play with the original companion text as written, or, sometimes if you draft commander that with Yuriko, then you can play that as your commander. I've seen custom rules, obviously with card count included in the cube, duplicates of different land cycles. But yeah, just like John said, anytime you're designing a cube, if you have something that completely breaks the rules of the format, or the game, then just elaborate. So I think another example, John, that you've pointed out before is like if you're going to start at a different life total, just anything you want to set those player expectations as a part of that elevator pitch.
I've seen cubes and am probably going to build a commander cube where all the commanders are in a separate pack that you draft at the start of the game. So it'll be like a pack of like 5 cards per pack, and everybody picks a couple options for commanders, and then they get to decide based on that what they want to actually draft. And it's fun. But like with rules, it's more important to have the rules established than to set the expectations. At the end of the day, like, would my draft be ruined if I didn't expect to see Birthing Pod in a draft and then saw Birthing Pod in a draft? No. But if I didn't realize that I could draft Mirror Servitors like a friggin' basic land at the end of it, and suddenly everyone else has like this optimized Mirror Servitor specific deck, and I'm sitting there with like Jund good stuff, like that would probably spoil my time.
Right.
Like, it's good to have expectations. It is necessary to have clear rules.
Right.
Another one I remember is the Japanese cube. There's one of our friends has a cube. It's all the cards are foiled Japanese, and if you have to ask what a card does, you lose life. And there's Death Shadow in the cube to abuse with that.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, in the middle of the draft, so that you start
What's
with
this do?
like
What's this do? What's this do? What's this do?
Exactly.
What's this do? And then kill your opponent.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So yeah, that's
What a bastard.
not only explaining that rule, but also that there's this card in here to subvert that rule is, should be stated, I feel.
Yes.
Though
I had to explain to one of my friends that balance is good.
Yeah.
At one point,
It's
this card looks
symmetrical.
This card looks trash. And I was
Yeah.
just like, don't pass it. Like, just take it and put it into your deck.
So in addition to rules, some people use the word rule interchangeably with design guidelines. Tim's mentioned I don't put more than 2 pips or whatever, stuff like that. Sometimes it can be helpful to explain those, like we were saying before, like that's extra fluff. Like no one's gonna go, oh, there's no triple pips, so I guess there's no crater hook. Like people will maybe figure stuff out like that, but it's sort of it's fluff most of the time. Sometimes I want to give this example of like people play like a Gigantha, and you're like, oh, do they have this sideboard card? And you're playing around it, and then the thing is like, I'm a Gigantha deck. I can't board in Wrath the Skies.
Right.
I have Gigantha. Rip in peace, Gigantha. No one will miss you. But yeah, there's a couple things like that where it's like you could figure that out. Explaining like, oh, my archetype cube in particular, the decks, the cheat sheet has 3 colors for each of the archetypes because that's where all their homes are. But I mentioned to people that 2-color decks are the norm. You're supposed to know there's Abzan Life Game, but you're gonna be blue. Oh my goodness, green black, or green white most of the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you get to know that you're in Life Game, but you don't know what your 2 colors are. You're not as forced. You're not pigeonholed just because you picked your archetype to pick your colors. It gives you some freedom. So that's sort of. It could be good explaining these guidelines, because there's always going to be some guy finishing up a commander game, and if you've got time to chew someone's ear off about what your cube is, this is the great time to give these guidelines. But when you're just like, we want to do this cube, and we're all trying to figure out whose cube to do, you explain to people, there's no 2-card combos, and decks can be 2 or 3 colors, but sometimes they're going to be like, let's just go with the guy that said artifacts.
Right.
It's just way easier. I know what I'm getting into.
Yeah.
So yeah. Another thing is, as Chim said, if you see Splinter Twin in my cube, you should assume it's supported.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a cube owner, and your cube isn't like a misdirect cube, a bad cards outside of their wheelhouse cube, you should support the cards that you think you're supporting. Traps are bad. You do not want someone to take a memory jar and assume that Storm is supported and go off on a wasted cube draft thinking they were going to get Storm. Even though memory jar is just a good card. It's draw 7, one-sided.
Right.
despite what the card says.
Yeah.
And it's also reusable and abusable and can deck your opponent. And,
The reason it was banned, like, instantly upon design.
yeah, just before the pre-release or something. It was.
It's like the first case of that.
But I think most of the time this comes up with 2 or 3 card combos where it's difficult, when you open your first pack and you see, Kitchen Finks or a Murderous Redcap, and you have to think like, oh no, is Malira in the cube? If it is, or Sacrifice Outlets, or like, what colors does this even fall into if it is supported? Or maybe it's just a good card. So like you said, you don't want to kind of trap people into, if I first pick Kitchen Finks and I second pick a this or a Seer, and they're both just in because there's, a pod archetype, but not Malira, I could be going in the total wrong direction, and I won't even know it until, round 2, 2 hours into my draft.
At least those 2 cards work together. The worst is when you take the Kitchen Finks, go, oh, I'm going to do pod, and then
it's just
never,
a mid-range card.
Yeah, there's just never a Viscera, never a pod.
So this support and the design rules, it cuts 2 ways, right? The first is, as a cube designer, you want people to be able to play the cube effectively. And so if you are, like, if there's one Storm card and nothing to support it, that's going to misdirect someone, and, it could lead to having a bad draft, right? Let's say it's like, I don't know, you see like a grape shot in there or something, right? But as a player, too, you just, obviously, like, the onus is on you to build a decent deck. Like the Kitchen Finks example, right? If I draft Kitchen Finks, I'm going, this, with what I have right now, this is a good mid-range card. Let's see if we can get, I'll keep in mind that I have it, and see if I can get the Malira, see if I can get the Birthing Pod. But if I don't, I have a Kitchen Finks. That's a good card.
Right.
And so, like, with my design philosophy, and I think the onus is on the builder here more than the player. It's just no dead cards. Can it be used the exact way the player expects it to be used? Maybe, probably. Who knows? Most likely. But it's at least usable and not going to be a dead card. And you're going to be able to play a Kitchen Finks as Richard Garfield intended. And, so it's just that is a big part of it. It's just designing something that, no dead cards.
I agree with what you're saying, but to a counterpoint, I have found very much that human beings are lemmings. They will run off a cliff if they see something else
We're getting dark.
showing them a cliff. So many people, like, I like to draft the hard way. I like to, I'll position myself with this Kitchen Finks in case the combo cards come around, and I'll have a sideboard card for aggro decks if I need it. Or like a card that's good against removal heavy decks that try to 1-for-1 you forever. I try to draft that way, but most people will go, oh, Memory Jar, blinders on, nothing exists but Storm, and ride or die, I'll just drop after the first round if my deck doesn't work. And I can't stand how so many people treat Cube that way. They just, like, I came here to force a deck and nothing, like, whereas, like, my thought is, like, if I force Storm, halfway through pack 1, I should figure out that Storm isn't supported and have pivoted. And, like, the fail case is you drafted a bunch of Ponders and
that sounds like
card
a great
draw.
deck.
Yeah, like
that's not a bad problem.
Mana ramp.
Aw,
like,
shucks.
Storm's not supported, but I'm just casting Woodfall Primus on turn 3 anyway. Ooh, you got me. Like, it's not hard to just draft a Goblin Welder and just have your Memory Jar be a good card in your deck anyway.
It's okay, I guess, with a Goblin Welder. I guess.
There's different shades. Like you say, you want your cards to be good. But for something like my Archetype Cube, I want my cards to not all be generically good. I want them to be good in context with synergy. But, like, I want a card like Weather the Storm, because there is a green life gain deck, a green Spells Matter deck, but Storm isn't supported, so I don't want to put a card with the word Storm on it, even though the life gain deck would love 5 instances of gain 3 life in a single turn mid-combat to grow your Johnny's Primate. That sounds exciting to me.
Right.
But if someone... I know half the people that draft my cube are going to see that and go, oh, spells matter. Storm must be in this cube.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to train wreck a draft because they think, I'm just going to force Storm, even though that's the only card with Storm written on it. And it's clearly like you see Grape Shot. Grape Shot is only good at killing a bunch of things or one opponent after a long, God bless you, long turn. Whereas Weather the Storm could just be a sideboard. Like Weather the Storm is a different cut of cloth. It's you're not killing someone with it unless you have. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses life cards, which are in my archetype cube. So like they would actually be good for that. But yeah, it's tough. You got to figure out what you're willing to dangle out there and risk misleading. And
I mean, Storm is so specific though.
Yeah.
Like there is like that deck jams very specific cards. Whereas you look at things like, let's go back to some other examples we had, right? Kitchen Finks and Splinter Twin. Mm-hmm. Like maybe I didn't get the Pestromite with Splinter Twin, right? Maybe I didn't get that, but I did get a friggin' Thragtusk. Mm-hmm. And I did get a Restoration Angel, and I did get a Kitchen Finks, and I did get the like a Baron or one of the Bounty Mages. Mm-hmm. That is still really good synergy, and the card is good on its own. But if you can design the deck to design the cube to not just rely on this card being good in this archetype, I think it makes for a better. Not necessarily a better experience, but like an easier to have a good experience than I need to jam these specific linchpin cards. Like if I don't get the Malira, my deck is garbage.
Yeah.
Like if I don't... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, to your point, that a big part of it is just how much a card indicates for its specific archetype. So Kitchen Finks, as an example, is, if it's in the cube and you're misled, you've got a Kitchen Finks. Yeah. If you draft a Splinter Twin and there aren't that many ETBs and there aren't Pestermite and Deceiver Exarch, then the card gets a lot worse. I would argue, even in your example, that while Splinter Twin is still a functional card and you can still cast it and put it on your Restoration Angel and Thragtusk, if you draft it and then you draft all the blue and red cards, then it doesn't matter that Thragtusk and Restoration Angel are in the cube and good targets because you built your deck wrong. All of your cards don't combo with it. You're in the wrong colors. You've gone askew, and by the time you realize it might be kind of too late. So
that's fair.
It kind of does matter which cards you're being misled by.
That's fair.
So my example in this is if you have a Reanimate in your hand and there's a Thragtusk in the graveyard, that's a good use of 1 mana. Just get a Thragtusk into play, get some value, get your life back. But if the best your deck can do is Reanimate a Thragtusk, you didn't draft a Reanimate deck.
Right.
You're like...
You have a Reanimator in your deck.
You have a Reanimator in your deck to maybe get your opponents, and some, if I were to build Archetype Cube to have Reanimator support, I would have Thragtusk kind of, land 6-drop land cyclers. Like it wouldn't be get a fatty that wins the game on its own. It would be accelerate a Twisted Abomination into play. It would,
That sounds sick.
It would be something that's clearly good and limited, but not just there's no other point in the game other than did you get your Atraxa into play.
I like that because I think that's a good compromise between.
Yeah. But everyone's gonna assume it's the other version. It's like, oh, I drafted all the Reanimates, but I didn't see any Atraxas.
Yeah, no Entomb.
Yeah, and that's why I don't want Storm. Because everyone who thinks of Storm thinks of it in the power cube sense of Storm.
Yeah.
Whereas if I would put Storm support, it would be like original Time Spiral block where you're suspend a couple cards over different turns so they all come off suspend the same turn for free, and then you play a Cold Golem, which ETBs and makes 3 red mana, right. So it's a cheap spell, and then you empty the Warrens for 6, and then that's what I want Storm to be in the cube. It's a limited version of Storm, yes. Whereas everyone assumes it's going to be okay, I tinker into my Bolas Citadel, and hopefully I find a Tendrils.
Right.
And if I don't, well, it's probably okay.
Yeah.
So it's playing on expectations, and you would think people have the right expectations, but they're, like I say, they're lemmings. So you wouldn't know how many times I've shown people Pauper Cube, and like people are like, oh, is there Soul Ring in this cube? You should put Soul Ring in this cube. Like, what do you mean? Never a common. Is Force of Will in this cube? Never a common. What do you mean? And also just way better than everything else you're seeing. So like people will expect. People have asked me, is Splinter Twin in this cube? Seeing Pestermite in my Pauper Cube, like. No, Pestermite's just a good common. It's a 2-power flash flyer that untaps a blocker, stops an attacker, taps their land on their upkeep. Like, this card is just good and limited. Before it was comboing, it was just a good card to draft in that limited format.
There's an interesting kind of paradox where the more experienced the Magic player is, the more that what we're saying
definitely
applies. Whereas it's
the dark side of this. You see a card, you assume it's supported. It's like you see a card, you assume it's some other pattern that I've seen before.
Whereas if I put a memory jar in my cube and played with my play group at the smaller store that I go to, they'll be like, "Oh, this card's great," and then they draft it into like Abzan big stuff,
right?
You know, and so it really again depends on the expectations of the group. I think that one of the things that we should definitely talk a little bit more about is the fundamentals of design philosophy. Because at the end of the day, even if like the spikiest old school spike that's been playing since it was playtest cards printed out on Richard Garfield's dot matrix printer, right? If the cube is designed fundamentally well, then you can still have a good time with it, even if, you know, you didn't get the Malira with your kitchen fix, right? So one of the things that, especially if you're designing a new cube, it's important to have some ground rules for yourself, because Magic has 1 billion cards in it now.
Right.
And it can be a little overwhelming, and it's very easy to make essentially unplayable cubes. Like the vast majority of cube card combinations, if you just take a randomized sample of Magic cards, are going to be dog water unplayable.
Right.
I mentioned something myself that when I was designing my cube, I kept it to 2 pips and 1 or 2 colors or colorless. And I think that is a good place to start. Like, decide whether your cube is going to be monocolor, if it's going to have the guilds in it, if it's going to have the shards in it, and just some general guidelines. Like, how do you guys go about that part of building a cube, or is that too basic for you guys? Like when you're
I think that's a good point. Just in general, making sure that the mana curve across different archetypes is supported for what you want them to do. Making sure that cards, to John's point before, go in preferably multiple archetypes, or that there's some kind of overlap, because you don't want the person that pack one, pick one drafts, a sulfuric vortex or something, to just autopilot the draft, and they're just, oh, I'm in this. This is the only card of these 10 that goes in my deck, and they do that, 45 times. You want them to be able to make interesting decisions, to experience that cube, so that hopefully it's a different experience every time, not just the games, but also the draft portion. You want, 2 people at every table to have, some skin in the game for every card, so that it's not just like, oh, I drafted, the Strip Mine, so I'm definitely going to get the Fastball, the Crucible, the Zeranorm. You want cards that overlap, and if the cards themselves don't, ideally you would have other cards in the cube that kind of introduce some of that push and pull, so that it's not so kind of autopilot. But to the mana curve point, John, also you had mentioned that you had done something with your cube to make sure that things were kind of balanced in that regard.
Yeah, so when I built my archetype cube, I think we're on Cube Tutor at that point. So I built it on Cube Tutor, had, it gives you all your stats and whatever, and I was like, okay, this looks alright, I've played it a couple times, it feels alright, but I wanted to be sure. So I made a separate cube on Cube Tutor for each of my archetypes. So I would just go through the cube and go, okay, Kami of Ancient Law. This goes in the Spirit deck. So I just put that, just make separate, Archetype Cube Spirit, put it in there, and I just go through every card. There's a Ghost Pirate that, is unblockable or hard to block, and, that you can put enchantments on it. It probably goes in the Enchantress deck a little bit. So it's a Spirit and enchantment. We'll call it those. Trading Post is an artifact that discards cards, gains you life, makes creatures, sacrifices creatures. That goes in every deck.
Best card all time.
Pretty much. It doesn't go in Spirits, but Spirits sometimes do tokeny stuff. So that goes in 7 different decks. There's certain cards. What's it? Furnace Celebration is a 3-mana enchantment that when you sack things, you can pay mana to shock a thing. That is an enchantment. And Enchantress deck was red at the time. It still is. But it doesn't go in the Enchantress deck. You don't play that in your Enchantress deck to draw a card off your Enchantress, I mean, you might have a green-red Enchantress Sacrifice deck where it's cool that it's also an enchantment, but I don't put that in that list.
Mm-hmm.
So I did all that, and then I got to see curves and color balance of every single archetype, and also just card quantity. And I got to see the Spirit deck has 5 2-drops in all 3 of the colors that it's arguably in, and it's supposed to be the aggro deck of the cube, and that just doesn't work. So I got to figure out I had a deadweight archetype in my cube. The Spirit deck just didn't really work unless the right card showed up to the right people. 540 card cube, not every card 2-drop would have been in the draft. So you have to get all 4 of them to have a deck that resembles
playing on curve.
Or the cube's a little slow, so you're not necessarily trying to be all on curve, but it just got way better once I decided, okay, I cut out some 7-drops, add some 2-drops. And that's all I had to do was, get all those stats. I got to see the Grixis Madness deck, there actually aren't a ton of blue cards with the word Madness on them. They, they kind of got rid of that and just shoehorned it into red-black. There's the Spider-Man set has a thing that's somewhat like Madness, so that might be. I can't believe I'm getting excited about the Spider-Man set, but that might actually help reinvigorate that archetype. But yeah, I had to figure out every single card with Madness and blue has to be there. Blue will just be the home of the looters and other ways to support Madness in other ways. Mm-hmm. So you have to figure out is each archetype actually supported? Mm-hmm. There's an example I like to give. The Strixhaven draft format had a green-black life gain deck. And there were just not enough good cards at common or in general in the archetype. So those cards, if you drafted 5 of that green-black Keystone common and got a bunch of support, you could draft it. But it was not frequent enough. So all those cards just were super low in 17 lands for pick order. They were just you were more likely to train wreck yourself by taking them. Mm-hmm. So that was a trap in that format, where it's these cards weren't supported enough, so they were actually just a trap. They were, if you just put a couple more support in, it works. Mm-hmm. My part of the design philosophy of my power cube that not mine, the guy who created it, is there's a ton of aggro cards in every color but blue, because your aggro deck needs every card to be a Savannah Lions to work. Mm-hmm. And most people can, 14, 15 pick Savannah Lions and it doesn't bother them. You can throw one in your control deck as a blocker and it's not the worst. But if your aggro deck has to play a 7-drop, it's just a dead card. Mm-hmm. It's not going to work.
Right.
So, it's some decks need more support, some decks need less, but you do want to make sure everything works.
I think one thing worth adding to that, because I agree with everything that you just said. That's a really good way of sorting out and making sure that each archetype has the support it needs. And I think you really eloquently illustrated that some archetypes need more support than others. One of the things that I like to include in that type of evaluation, and probably the only reason that my Nightmare Cube was somehow playable, more or less, was I like to include the category of repeatable value engines. It's one thing for a card to do a thing and then be done. And if the card is going to do a thing, and then it's going to do a thing, and then it's going to do a thing, and then it's going to do a thing. Not just Planeswalkers, but like Planeswalkers are definitely the easiest example of that. You want to make sure that if an archetype or a deck variety in your cube doesn't have one of those repeatable value engines, that their one-time effects need to be powerful enough to balance out the fact that they're not getting repeatable value out of it. I'll give you an example. I remember in your enchantments, I think it was Archetype Cube, you had Broken Fall.
Yeah.
That card was busted in the enchantment.
Always has been.
We all remember.
Like that was insane. And yes, there were other repeatable value engines, but just having an enchantment that was cheap, that I could bounce to my hand.
3 is not cheap, but
it's cheap.
Cheap in that cube, maybe.
Yes. So that was relatively cheap for the environment that it was played in. Could bounce back to my hand and then trigger every Enchantress and Constellation effect over and over and over again, while keeping them shits alive.
Right. Yeah.
Was just like so far out of whack when it came to the power level. If it just did it once, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't. It did it every friggin' turn, multiple times a turn.
The text 3 mana cast enchantment is really good in that cube.
Yeah, you get an emblem, pay 3 mana, you cast an enchantment.
Yes.
And you can't even abrupt decay it or anything. It's just you can discard it, but that's it. And I don't think there's like duresses in the cube.
So things like that, just keep in mind that if you have some way of generating repeated value in the cube, that's just another category to keep track of, so you don't have like this massive disparity in power level.
So that's part of like a very polarized card, whereas like most decks, I mean, Broken Fall is just a good card in limited, but most decks it's not that good. Whereas in the Enchantress deck, you're getting extra value, and your giant eggs and basket creature is now immortal.
Yes.
So it's like it goes from like a 2 to a 7, or maybe a 9.
In that deck, it was a 9.
Yeah. So like you do want to keep track. Like I've definitely cut cards from my Archetype Cube for being too good.
Mm-hmm.
I think I still have Broken Fall in there.
I haven't seen it.
That
it should be out.
I'm okay with it. Part of my design philosophy is sort of I want to do a whole separate episode on Archetype Cube because it's my baby.
It's
but part of it is like I wanted deck in a can kind of card. So like, you can, you draft a normal set. I'm drafting spirits. I need to Asvan. I need to like see enough spirits and have them be draftable so that my cards is like, whenever you do things with a spirit, you just have enough of that. Your card, your Thief of Hope that drains life. How many life do you need to drain for your Grey Ogre to be a card?
Right.
Like it has to also deal 3, gain 3. So you need 3 spirits that you can draw and play in the average game after you've already spent 3 mana on a 2/2 spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So you need Asvan, and one way to get Asvan is just have a Broken Fall that's like, if I want to cast enchantments, I have this one card that lets me cast as many enchantments as my heart desires. So it's like an army in a can. Like when you have Cloud Goat Ranger, you don't worry about how many creatures or tokens you can make. You're just like, if I draw this, I'll have enough. So
I think kind of to both Chim's point and yours, John. Chim's was talking more, I think, about when you're designing the cube initially and evaluating for the power level of the different archetypes and the cards in it. And then you had mentioned that you evaluate based on cards that are disparately powerful and you try and cull them. And obviously one of the things that you want to do after sitting down to play with people, everybody that I see that designs cubes does this, at the end of the draft, ask people, what was too good?
Yeah.
What was too bad? MVP, LVP, I know you asked, John.
Yep.
A lot of people look through the decks that their players draft, and that's not
no one has a good answer, but they should.
But if a card is crazy powerful,
if they have a good answer, it's because they came to me first and complained about a card.
Yeah.
And
I feel like this is one of those things where it's if somebody says something, 100 people have thought it. You know, if somebody comes to you and they're like, "Listen, John, Broken Fool, like this card is ridiculous. I'm crushing all my opponents with it," or somebody loses to it and there was nothing that they could do for any card. Just think like all of the times that people had a card that was a little too good or a little too bad, and they didn't say anything.
So I maybe I should reevaluate because like. When I built the cube, I needed to make sure it worked, and one way to do that is to shoehorn in cards that for sure definitely work.
Right.
But now that I know that it works, I've been able to cull cards out like, oh, this card's like I think I cut a Johnny's Primate from the Life Gain deck because it was just the most efficient card, and it had that like what I call the Bitter Blossom effect, where like the Fairies deck is just a different beast when they go turn 2 Bitter Blossom. It's just like the game is kill this Primate or else, and then after you find a way to kill this thing, which grows faster than removal, because the removal in the cube is bad on purpose, then you have to still play a game where your opponent's at like 40 and can do whatever else they're doing with their life game.
Right.
Is Shackles in your cube?
I didn't quite make it. I have Cage of Hands.
You should cut Broken Fall and replace it with Shackles. So you still get the repeatable enchantment with conditions, and it costs mana to bounce to your hand. Just saying.
What shackles are we talking about?
Enchanted creature can't attack.
Yeah.
Actual shackles.
Actual, not Vidal.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god. So confused for a second.
Get Vidal.
I'm the only person on this planet that Chimps could say shackles to me, and I would think shackles and not Vidalcan shackles.
Yes, probably. Yeah.
And know exactly why it should. Like, it's in my list of cards that I've put in the cube at one point. I have Cage of Hands, which is just a pacifism that bounces, but it costs 2 to bounce, but the creature can't block. Nothing's where everyone's gonna shackles their opponent's thing, attack, and then they're just gonna block, and it's gonna die. And they're like, well, I wanted to just fiddle with my shackles, but I just didn't realize that you could also just block. People don't read cards. So, I don't know. That's my idea for those. But, yeah, probably I'll give Broken Fall another shot, but it's definitely on my watch list. I've definitely lost with access to Broken Fall before.
It's getting searched at the TSA. It's on the it's in that first checkpoint.
The Enchantress deck is the one I've cut the most cards from because it's just very stable to be like, giant creature, deal with it or die. And
by making it bigger, I drew a bunch of cards.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So you definitely don't want cards that solo the game. I've cut Twilight Prophet. There's a card like whenever you make tokens, you put counters on, and you can remove the counters to make tokens. Yeah. And like I played like 3 games with it, and all of them where I resolved this card, and I didn't spend mana on anything else except this card, and I won easily. Mm-hmm. And that's like a very clear sign that card is busted.
Right.
Another card I cut was Sigil of the Empty Throne. Whenever you play an enchantment, make a 4/4 angel. Really good finisher. I've beat that card with Twilight Prophet, but when Twilight Prophet got cut, we had to cut that card because games were like interesting. Then they made 12 power flyers the first turn and then threatened to do it every other turn. And it's like, well, what are we doing here?
Well, we phrased this as going to be an episode about Cube, but really Andy and I just wanted to have an intervention with John about Broken Fall.
But yeah. So to go back more to the philosophy, the color balance you were talking about, you want cards to be playable in your cube. Weird, I know. Mm-hmm. But so everyone wants to put multicolored cards in their cube. Good rule of thumb is don't. You want a couple. But if I have a red card in my cube, it can go in mono red. It can go in any of the 4 other 2-card combos. That's like 5 decks. Any 3-color deck. There's like 7 of the 3-color combos, I think. No, not all but one.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't know. I can't do math. I'm a math major. But if you have a red-white card, it only goes in the red-white deck or 3-color decks. So like if your cube isn't specifically multicolor themes, a red-white card just goes in so fewer decks than a red card or a white card.
Mm-hmm.
So just, as fun as they are, like my favorite draft formats are multicolor formats. If you don't have your cube as a, crazy multicolor matters, everything fixing is great, really want to limit multicolor cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I mean, what you mentioned also about fixing being great is one thing to consider is the cycles that you put in, whether or not they're complete, and their representation across color combinations. It matters a lot for different archetypes. Like if your red decks are going to be aggressive, then obviously the red-white horizon land is going to be better than a red-white temple, even if temples are, 10 lands that you've chosen. So you want to make sure that you have good representation across all of the different colors that you're trying to support and in ways that they need to be supported. 4-tap lands in your aggressive strategy is not a good strategy, and a bunch of pain lands in your control deck is not going to work out well. And a lot of cycles aren't even completed. I know they just printed the Tango lands, the Battle for Zendikar missing. Right. I'm not sure if they did all 5 or just the black-green one. They might trickle those out, but they've shown interest in completing some sets.
There's 6 of the 10 Horizon Canopy lands.
Right.
It's like, it's sometimes weird, and it's okay to not have your sets be complete. Mm-hmm. Sometimes your cube wants Battlefield Forge for the red-white aggro decks, but you want, comes into play like a Celestial Colonnade for your control deck. It's just how the things work. I want to do a weird thing in Archetype Cube where it's like, so I'll have the gain life duels, like the Scoured Barons, the cons ones, in the life gain deck, and the fetch lands in the sacrifice deck colors, but like it got weird. There's there aren't there's a land with graft for the counters matter deck, but like that's not a fixing land even.
And again, it's all on balance for how much it's worth, including 3 lands of one type and 2 lands of another, and the complexity that you put on your players is something that you always have to have in mind.
So I just said whatever, I'll put them all in, and it's like there's life gain lands in non-life gain colors, but the set's complete and it works. But also all those fixing lands aren't the best fixing, so it's sort of just like, here's a lot of bad fixing.
Yeah.
And you have to make it work.
The way that I like to do it, and this is maybe a little lazier, but I think actually makes a pretty decent experience from the player draft standpoint, is I have 2 categories of lands. I have utility lands, which I include in whatever color they're in, or whatever color combination they're in. So, for example, Celestial Colonnade, I would just put that not as a land, not as fixing, but that would just be an Azorius card to me. Just boop, it's right in the Azorius card.
Yeah.
And then if I want a land for fixing, I am really a huge fan of just proxying 20 City of Brasses and not thinking about it.
It's one way to do it.
I throw them straight in there. Everybody gets their color fixing. Nobody complains, hey, there's a lack of green-red. No, there's not. There's 20 City of Brasses in this deck. like it's not my fault that you didn't draft one of the 20 City of Brasses that's in this cube. And if you don't want City of Brass, just go for Meriden's Core. It's like 20 cents on the dollar. It produces any color. So, there are ways of going about this. Now, of course, there's going to be times where, you want things to be a little slower, or you want to maybe include, guild support, gate, or whatever it is, the Maze's End nonsense. Yeah. There's, do lands matter? Are you playing, Field, the stupid zombie producer, if you have 7, Field of the Dead? Are you playing all of this stuff? And so it can matter. But if you're just including lands for fixing, make it easy on yourself. Just 20 City of Brasses in your freaking cube. You're good to go.
But then the control decks suffer.
Yeah, Savannah Lions is like a 4-1 for 1.
Yeah.
Your opponent starts at 13.
Yeah, whatever. maybe not City of Brass. Maybe find another land, but just like find lands that produce all the colors and just do it. Proxy a new land. Just this land produces any color.
Don't do that.
I don't care.
Please don't do that.
Do it. No,
some of the worst
terrible idea.
cubes I've played had like custom cards, and the people who designed them didn't know how to make custom cards well. Like I've played a cube where someone had like it was like a 2-mana planeswalker that was like plus to like tap 2 lands, put a stun counter on each of them or something.
Oh
It's
my
like
god!
A 2-drop planeswalker that locks
Double
the
stun
opponent out of the
rings.
game and is harder to kill because it's plussing. It was just like the most egregious card anyone's ever seen, and they just didn't know that it was busted because they designed it and never played it or something. I don't know how they got there, but
Right.
so if you're making custom cards, it's fine. Like you can make the Horizon lands in the colors that they don't exist in because you know that design works. You can make Grove of the Burn Willows for other colors.
Please don't do that.
Though
This is one place we disagree.
Though the part of Grove of the Burn Willows was it was supposed to be like, oh, your red-green aggro deck doesn't want your opponent to gain life, whereas every other color paired wants your opponent to gain life rather than you lose a life.
Right.
Just make Gaia's Cradle in every color. That's all you got to do. It's just that. No, but like for real, like I think there's a conspiracy card, and if there's not, there ought to be, where like you draft it and you pick 2 colors and the land just produces those colors. That's not a bad.
Pollyanna, the High City.
That's not a bad
It makes
solution.
3, and it requires your neighbors.
Yeah, you draft the colors. They pick a color, then you pick a color, then the person.
It's
I like
really
that a
cool.
lot. I like that a lot. So like there are solutions to this that don't involve like everything. I like the City of Brass thing. I'm just saying it's pretty good, but
there's the lands.
there's problems with that.
It's like a tap land that makes 2 colors, and you choose what they are after the draft or something.
Yeah.
And you could just put like 20 of those in. And
Yeah.
everyone has a land that fixes for themselves. They just have to take it and decide what it is later.
And you don't have to spend time thinking about that and can go straight into these are my archetypes and these are the cards that do things instead of just produce mana.
Right.
Every hour you spend designing your cube and making it better is going to pay off for 8 people every time you cube draft. Like, it's worth the thought, but that's just me.
But the whole point on the lands is just to get back to John's initial point of, like, don't go crazy with the multicolor cards. Everything is balance. Some cubes are comprised entirely of multicolor cards, and if the fixing supports it, that's fine. But most people, when they first set out with a cube, you're not going to be experienced enough to know how many lands you even need to fix in order to balance it with however many red and white cards you have.
All these rules we're telling you or suggesting to you, don't take them, like, use them, but build your cube first. Like, make it and then make it good later. Like, don't think like, oh, I don't have the mana fixed, I can't do my cube. Like, just throw 20 City of Brass in, play it a couple times, and then figure it out later. Like, just get it on paper. You'll learn so much more playing the cube than theory crafting.
Right.
And
Can't emphasize enough how useful an Excel spreadsheet when you're making the cube can be. If you arrange everything by color and color combination,
Cube
you can keep
Tutor
track
does
of
this better. But unless you're an Excel wizard, which I'm not.
I'm in Excel every day, so just use a tool to keep track of what colors, the converted mana cost, and then what archetypes they fit in, and you can have multiple archetypes per line. That's how I tend to do it.
Whatever tool you use, just make sure it's one that works for you. Not don't. I'm telling you, Cube Tutor. If Excel works for you, use Excel. So yeah, one of the things that I learned from my first iteration of Archetype Cube was I wanted every archetype to be in every color. And that was untenable. And I figured that out after a couple of drafts. And it was, okay, how do I hone this down? And I came across a Sam Black article where he mentioned he has his cubes, like I say, the Abzan's the life gain deck. He has his archetypes in wedges such that you can draft any 2 colors and still be in that archetype, but like so you're like green white. You don't know. You have to go green card, a good white card. You're like, okay, I feel like I'm green white. So you could be in the life gain deck. You don't have to be though. You can be green white enchantress. You can be green white walls. You know, you can know your colors and not know your deck, but also you can know your deck. Like, oh, I drafted a artifact that gains life. I'm a life gain deck. I don't know that I'm green white. You're not on rails. That's some of the issues I've had with some draft formats. Was like, there's a red white life gain, red white double strike deck in Modern Masters 2 or something, and like, there's very clear cards that go in that, and then like a bunch of red cards and white cards you don't want.
You drafted MC Hammer Big Butts, and now you just need creatures with large.
Right.
Yeah. So like it's like interesting at first, and then you fall into your lane, and then like the whole draft's on rails. And like I want it to not be that.
So I think that like just to wrap this up a little bit, because we've said a lot of like wide concepts, right? When you're building your cube, just if you're a beginner, just have an idea of some themes that you want in the cube. So maybe some archetypes, but really just like, do you want it to be monocolored? Do you want it to be two-colored, like guilds? Probably stay away from shards if you're just building your first cube.
Yeah.
Make sure everything kind of lines up, and then just play it. Get feedback from your players. Take cards out that people aren't playing. Take cards out that people are playing a little too much. And don't be afraid to play around with it.
If a card is 15th pick every time, that's probably a sign that it's not deserving of a slot.
Right.
Exactly.
But, I mean, yeah, like Jim said, just the most important thing is always just going to be the player experience. I mean, as John said, you put in all of this time to make sure that it's a good environment and it's fun for not only yourself, but the other 7 people. So you want to obviously be listening to what they say. And the first step is just getting the cube together. Just sit 7 people down, test your idea, and then kind of develop it from there. Don't get in your own head.
I've heard people say like, "Oh, I built my cube without any aggro creatures in colors except red because no one drafts the Savannah lines." And my cube has jungle lines and Savannah lines in every color. So like, if you figure out what your locals like, if they're those people that like the only aggro deck in cube is red, don't show up with your cube that has a bunch of 2/1 black creatures with drawbacks. You know, it's they're not going to draft them. You got to figure out what your locals like, what you like, and have fun. That's it. Just whatever has fun.
And remember, if at the end of the game you haven't lost friends, you're not trying hard enough. But I think that's a pretty good. Besides my comment, that's a pretty good way of wrapping this up. Just set expectation, like have an expectation, set the expectation for your players, and just make sure everybody has a good time playing, drawing, and then playing cards.
Yeah. It's an iterative process. You're not going to get it right the first try. Cube is way too complex. Just have fun with it and be self-critical.
That is part of the fun.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I think that's a good time to wrap it up. For the 3-for-1 podcast, I am Bacon, Jim, Snake, whatever you want to call me. It's fine.
Bobbrik, Andy, signing off.
Zemoo, John, signing off.
And may you reach your untapped step with your birds unbolted.
As always.